Hello and welcome. You're watching News Tonight and I'm Vishal Dahiya. Now, before we go over to the headlines, Rajya Sabha TV appeals to all its viewers to stay safe from the COVID-19 pandemic. Wear your face masks, wash hands and face regularly and maintain physical distancing while stepping outside. Remember, these simple precautions are all that it takes to defeat the pandemic. And now, let's get you the headlines for today. 8 BJP candidates, including Union Minister Hardeep Puri, elected unopposed for Rajya Sabha from Uttar Pradesh. 1 seat each goes to Samajwadi Party and BSP from UP. BJP's Naresh Bansal also elected to the upper house from Uttarakhand. Eight parliamentary standing committees of Rajya Sabha clocked their best performance in last 3 years. Average time per meeting in 2019-20 crosses 2 hours, an improvement of 55% over that of 2018-19. Second phase polling in Bihar tomorrow for 94 seats across 17 districts, more than 2 crore 85 lakh voters to decide political fate of 1,463 candidates. By-polls to 54 assembly seats across 10 states, also on Tuesday. India firmly rejects attempts by Pakistan to alter the status of Gilgit-Baltistan, says Islamabad has no right to alter the status of terrorist territories it has occupied illegally and forcibly. In the light against the COVID-19 pandemic, India's recovery rate crosses 91.5%. Active cases fall to 6.8% of the total positive cases, over 11 crore samples tested so far. Let's now take a look at all these news in detail. Now, results for biennial elections to 10 Rajya Sabha seats in Uttar Pradesh and 1 seat in Uttarakhand have been declared. All 10 candidates have been elected unopposed from Uttar Pradesh, and they include 8 candidates from BJP, Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, National General Secretary Arun Singh, and Neeraj Shekhar, Geeta Sakhya. And there's one more candidate who's been elected unopposed from the state of Uttarakhand, and that is Naresh Bansal, who also belongs to BJP. In fact, there were 11 seats which were up for grabs in these biennial polls. As far as Rajya Sabha is concerned, 10 seats were from Uttar Pradesh and the only seat was from Uttarakhand. Now, elaborate security arrangements are in place for the second phase of Bihar Assembly elections. 94 constituencies spread across 17 districts, including Patna, Darbhanga and Madhubani, will go to polls in this phase on Tuesday. Polling will begin from 7 a.m. and will continue till 6 p.m. Meanwhile, the polling will be held up to 4 p.m. in 8 Naxal-affected constituencies, including Raghopur, Paru, Minapur and Atoli. Over 2.85 crore voters will decide the political future of 1,463 candidates, 146 women and 513 independent candidates, and 1 transgender are also there in the fray. This phase will decide the fate of 7 ministers of the Nitish Kumar government as well as RJD's Tejasvi Yadav. BJP is contesting 45 seats, JDU 43 and Vikashsheel Insan Party 6 seats in this phase. While RJD is contesting 56 seats, Congress has fielded 24 candidates, LJP has fielded 52 candidates, RLSP 36, BSP 33 and NCP 29 candidates in this particular phase. Election Commission has instructed to follow COVID protocol during the conduct of elections. Now, elections are being held in 3 phases for 243-member Bihar Assembly polls. While the first phase was held on 28th of October, voting in other 2 phases will be held on 3rd of November and 7th of November. Counting of the votes will take place on 10th November. Campaigning for the third and final phase of elections in Bihar is also picking up pace. 78 assembly constituencies spread over 15 districts will go to the polls in the last phase, that is on 7th of November. JDU President and Chief Minister Nitish Kumar held rallies in Atmanagar and Bhairiganj in Madhepura district. Addressing the rally, he said if voted to power, he will make Bihar a developed state. Senior BJP leader and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also held multiple rallies in Dhaka, Raxaul, Sitamarhi and Madhubani districts in support of NDA candidates. Addressing a rally in Sitamarhi, BJP President JP Nadda asserted that NDA is moving towards a historic victory in Bihar. The BJP chief also held a roadshow in Darbhanga. RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav also held public meetings in Saharsa, Darbhanga and Narpatganj in support of candidates of the Grand Alliance. Rashtriya Lok Samata Party chief Upendra Kushwaha addressed rallies in Riga, Pathara and Parihar in Sitamarhi. Leaders of Congress, CPI-ML, CPI and CPM also held public meetings in poll-bound areas. Moving on from Bihar Assembly polls, now by-elections for 54 Assembly seats in 10 states will also be held on Tuesday. 63 seats are currently vacant in state assemblies across the country. 54 of these will be filled in by elections scheduled for Tuesday, while voting for 2 seats in Manipur will be held on 7th of November. 28 assembly seats going to polls on Tuesday are in Madhya Pradesh. 8 assembly seats are up for grabs in Gujarat, 7 in Uttar Pradesh, 2 seats each in Odisha, Nagaland, Karnataka and Jharkhand, and 1 seat each in Chhattisgarh, Telangana and Haryana. In Madhya Pradesh, campaign for by-elections to 28 assembly constituencies ended on Sunday evening. Polling will be held between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow. All arrangements have been made to ensure free and fair polling. Over 63 lakh voters will decide the fate of 355 candidates tomorrow in these elections. In Gujarat as well, poll campaigning for by-elections in 8 assembly seats ended last evening. Polling will be held tomorrow, while counting of votes will be held on 10th of November. Total 81 candidates are in the fray for these 8 assembly seats. Polling will be held from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. More than 18,17,000 voters are eligible to use their franchise during tomorrow's polling. All 8 seats were vacated following the resignations of Congress MLAs early this year during the Rajya Sabha elections. In Uttar Pradesh, a total 93 candidates are in the fray for 7 assembly seats, voting for which will be held on Tuesday, while the counting of votes will be held on 10th of November. By-polls to the Rajya Sabha seat from Karnataka will be held on 1st of December. The seat fell vacant following the death of Ashok Kasti. Election Commission said that the notification for the by-polls will be issued on 11th of November. The counting of votes will take place an hour after voting is completed. BJP leader Kasti passed away on 17th of September due to COVID-19. His term as a Rajya Sabha member was to end in June 2026. GST collected in October rose to 1.05 lakh crore rupees, crossing the 1 lakh crore rupees mark for the first time since February this year. According to experts, the numbers indicate the definitive revival of consumption and festival spends across the economy. The gross GST revenue collected in October 2020 is 1,05,155 crore, which is 10% higher than 95,379 crore collected in the same month last year. The Finance Ministry, in a statement, said on Sunday that the total number of GSTR 3B returns filed till October 31st, 2020 is 80 lakh. The Ministry of Finance will release an amount of 6,000 crore rupees as second tranche to 16 states and 3 union territories under its special window to states for meeting the GST compensation cess shortfall. The amount will be passed on to the states and union territories at the same interest rate, which is lower than the cost of borrowings for the state and UTs. Ministry of Finance has facilitated loans of rupees 12,000 crore till date under the special window to states and union territories. 21 states and 3 union territories till date have opted for a special window under the option. The loans raised by Centre are released on a back-to-back basis to states and union territories in lieu of GST compensation cess releases. Now let's take a look at some more news. The 8 department-related parliamentary standing committees of Rajya Sabha have reported a marked improvement in their functioning in respect of duration of meetings and attendance during 2019-20. Now these committees clocked the best performance of the last 3 years. Rajya Sabha Chairperson M. Venkaiah Naidu has often appealed to the parties to ensure that members attend the parliamentary standing committee meetings regularly.
The Secretariat has analysed the functioning of the committees of Rajya Sabha during the last 3 years as desired by Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu. The 8 department-related parliamentary standing committees of Rajya Sabha met for an average duration of 2 hours, 10 minutes per meeting during 2019-20, crossing the 2-hour mark for the first time. This marks an improvement of 55% over that of 2018-19 and a hike of 25% over the average of previous 2 years. The average duration has been 1 hour 25 minutes during 2018-19 and 1 hour 51 minutes during 2017-18. The average attendance in the total 117 meetings of these 8 committees comes to 49.2% during 2019-20, again the best of the last 3 years. The average attendance crossed the halfway mark with 50.73% for the first time during first half of 2019-20. It, however, came down to 41.15% in the meetings held in the second half during pandemic period, making a decline of over 9.5%. However, the committees met for an average duration of 2 hours 23 minutes during the pandemic. Chairman Naidu has been regularly reviewing the functioning of these committees and shared some of his concern with the chairman of these committees. During this year, the number of meetings held with the attendance of 50% or more members in each committee increased to 46.15% of the total, as against 14% and 30% during previous 2 years, respectively. The number of meetings held without the required quorum has declined to 10% this year, the lowest of last 3 years. These 8 committees met for a total duration of 254 hours, 27 minutes this year, the longest in last 3 years. During 3 years period of 2017 to 20, the 8 committees of Rajya Sabha held a total of 300 meetings over a duration of 571 hours and 22 minutes. The 3-year average duration of meeting has been 1 hour 54 minutes and the average attendance being 45.35%. During 2019-20, the Committee on Home Affairs has met for the longest duration of 47 hours 27 minutes, followed by Committee on Health and Family Welfare, 42 hours and 22 minutes, and Committee on HRD, 40 hours 44 minutes. During 2017-20, the Committee on HRD met for the longest duration of 100 hours 5 minutes, followed by Home Affairs 87.17 hours, Transport, Tourism and Culture 80.11 hours, Health and Family Welfare 76.15 hours, Commerce 70.17 hours, Science and Technology and Environment and Forest and Climate Change 68.47 hours, Pensions, Public Grievances, Law and Justice 52.19 hours, and Industry 36 hours 11 minutes. Each department-related standing committee has 10 members from Rajya Sabha and 21 members from Lok Sabha and are reconstituted in September every year. While 8 committees are headed by members of Rajya Sabha, 16 are led by Lok Sabha members. Kriti Mishra's report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now take a look at the COVID-19 situation. India continues to occupy the top global position as the country with the maximum number of recoveries. Now, the total recoveries have crossed 75 lakhs today. 53,285 recoveries have been registered in the last 24 hours, pushing the recovery rate to 91.7%. Now, India reported 45,230 new COVID-19 infections and 496 deaths in the past 24 hours, taking the total number of cases to 82.29 lakh. Death toll has risen to 1,22,607. The active cases have sustained on the downslide and stand at 5.61 lakh. The active case comprise only 6.83% of the total positive cases of the country. Over 11 crore samples have been tested so far, including 8.55 lakh samples tested on Sunday. The centre and Delhi government has decided to concentrate efforts in key areas such as targeted RT-PCR testing in critical zones like restaurant and marketplaces amid rising coronavirus infection in the national capital. The decision was taken at the review meeting on the situation in Delhi, chaired by Union Home Secretary Ajay Kumar Bhalla, Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Paul, and other senior officers of the Delhi government. The strategy to contain spread of COVID-19, keeping in view the festival season and decreasing temperatures accompanied by rising air pollution, was also discussed at the meeting. Delhi is witnessing a third wave of new cases and reported 4,001 new cases on Monday. National capital reported 5,664 cases and 51 deaths on Sunday, taking the total number of cases to over 3.92 lakh. 4,159 recoveries were also reported in the same period. The death toll increased to 6,562. With the new COVID cases and total active cases going up, Delhi government is now focusing on testing, contact tracing and treatment. Now, health experts have warned of a rise in cases as winter sets in and people venture out amid the ongoing festival season. Several states, including Assam and Andhra Pradesh, reopened schools as part of unlock guidelines starting this month. Now, schools reopened for students of classes 9th and 10th in Andhra Pradesh on Monday after months of the coronavirus-induced lockdown. Students will be attending school every alternate day. Each classroom will be limited to only 16 students. The states will open for classes 6 to 8 from November 23rd and class 1 to 5 from 14th of December. The Tamil Nadu government has allowed schools, colleges, cinemas, zoos, and amusement parks to reopen from November in adherence to standard operating procedures. The Odisha government has also announced partial reopening of schools for students of classes 9th to 12th from 16th of November and places of worship with appropriate restrictions and safety protocols. In a bid to prevent crowding in local trains in Mumbai, railway authorities added 753 new special services, taking the total number of services on the suburban network to 2,773. With this, 88% local trains are now back on the track in the city. Meanwhile, the government has issued guidelines for managing mental illness amid coronavirus pandemic. Now, the government has suggested to establish a hotline between mental health establishment and a nearby COVID-designated hospital while admitting a person with mental illness. The pandemic situation continues to worsen worldwide, with total cases nearing 47 million and the death toll surpassing 1.2 million. Over 33.8 million people have recovered from the disease globally. The United States still tops the tally, with cases crossing 9.47 million and over 2.36 lakh deaths. Europe is facing a resurgence of infections in recent days, making it the epicenter of the pandemic once again. On Monday, Germany entered into a 4-week partial lockdown to curb COVID-19. New restrictions include closure of restaurants, bars, theaters, cinemas, and other leisure facilities. However, schools, kindergartens, non-essential shops, and hairdressers are to remain open. England is also imposing a tougher COVID-19 lockdown from Thursday. Under the new measures, only essential services, including travel for work, education, exercise, shopping for essential and medicines or assistance will be permitted. All non-essential shops and hairdressers will remain closed for a month, even as essential shops, schools and universities will remain open. Austria is also imposing new restrictions this week. From Tuesday, restaurants and bars will be closed for dining and only takeaways will be allowed. Cultural, sports and leisure activities are cancelled, while a night curfew is being imposed from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Other European countries, including Spain, Belgium, France, Poland and the Czech Republic, have also implemented shutdowns. Meanwhile, World Health Organization Director General is self-isolating after coming in contact with a COVID-19 infected person. India has strongly rejected Pakistan's decision to provide provincial status to Gilgit-Baltistan. External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Anurag Shrivastava, in a statement to media, said Gilgit-Baltistan is an integral part of India and part of the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh. Anurag Shrivastava said Pakistan has no locus standi on territories illegally and forcibly occupied by it. He said such attempts by Pakistan intended to camouflage its illegal occupation cannot hide the grave human rights violations, exploitation and denial of freedom for over 7 decades to the people residing in these Pakistan-occupied territories. The spokesperson further said, instead of seeking to alter the status of these Indian territories, Pakistan should immediately vacate all areas under its illegal occupation. India's response comes amid media queries on remarks by Pakistani Prime Minister in Gilgit on Sunday regarding his government's decision to accord provisional provincial status to the so-called Gilgit-Baltistan. India and Germany have begun high-level talks amid the COVID-19 pandemic. During a meeting with the officials in Berlin, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla on Monday asserted that terrorists all over the world are united in their objectives, but there is no unity among the victims of terrorism yet. Shringla said that all nations that are victims of terrorism must unite and defeat the forces that support terrorism. Shringla's visit to Germany came a day after Foreign Secretary held a briefing on the nation's foreign policy and initiatives of the ministry in France. He had rounded up his Paris trip with a detailed discussion about the post-COVID-19 pandemic recovery. Shringla is on a 3 European nation tour from 29th of October to 4th of November. Now some news about U.S. presidential election. The 2020 United States presidential election is scheduled for Tuesday, the 3rd of November. Now, this year's U.S. presidential election has been different from the previous ones owing to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. While U.S. President Donald Trump is seeking a re-election for a second term from the Republican ticket, the Democrats have announced Joe Biden as its presidential candidate. Now, the presidential elections of the most powerful democracy are keenly observed across the world. Akhilesh Suman brings us this report. Okay, so let's now take a look at some more suggestions once again for all of our viewers as far as preventive measures for COVID-19 are concerned. 3 simple steps: wear your mask, wash your hands and face regularly, and maintain physical distancing of 6 feet when in public gathering or crowded areas as well. These 3 simple steps will keep you safe from COVID-19 infection, and these are really easy steps to follow at all times. That's all we have in this edition of News Tonight. We'll come back again tomorrow evening. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.